In the next two videos I will show you 8 tactical exercises for the game Amazons. The idea is that you will have a deeper understanding of the game and that you can use in your own game once you understood these basic concepts. The games are split in two. First 4 positions are the easier ones for basic understanding, whereas the second part is more about the nuances, how to get the most out of your positions. So as always, you will have some time to think about the position. You can stop the video, and in the end I will give you my solutions. In the very first position, you can imagine that we are in the end game and you have your own bunker. You have to give me the path how you can move with your Amazon and how you to shoot your arrows such that you will cover all the leftover squares and not miss a single one. If you found such a route, then this is the solution, and we'll see you in the next exercise, which is this one. It's White's turn, and you have to tell me who will win the game. That's it. In the next position, it's this one. Here it's a question about strategy. Who do you think will win the game if we continue with perfect play from both sides? If you cannot find the perfect play, just think about decent play. Who will probably win? Finally, the fourth position is this one, and it's White to move. My question is pretty simple. Do you have a strategy for White, how to continue and win the game? So let's see the solutions. So in this case, this could be potentially a real example from a game where we have just these leftover squares, and ideally we want to cover all of them since each move and each square counts. So I first of all give you a bad example. There are certainly many different possibilities how to do it perfectly. I'll show you how not to do it. So if you would like, for example, to play to b1 and shoot an arrow to c2, then you will just lose out the square on d1. You can certainly start with b1, but then you should shoot to a2, then go to c2, shoot to b1, and then you can slowly just shoot the arrows behind you, and finally you will cover all the squares. Similarly, just a different solution. You can start on c2. I'm making the counters blue just so you see the path better, not because they're different. So you can start on c2, for example, move to a4, and then put a counter on d1. And then again, you just need to not to block your own path, so not putting anything on b3. For example, you can move to b4, shoot to c4, move to a4, shoot to b4, then move here, shoot behind you, and finally you can cover all of the squares. So there are many possibilities. You have just to see not to choose a wrong one. In the second position, because you have already learned that there are many ways to get all the squares, all you need to do in this position is to count the empty squares that you can get. And it doesn't matter which of the White's pieces moves, all that White has in his side are these squares, and they are 17 because it's 16 and this one. why it is important is once you think about closing up space and putting up a barrier, then you can already just count the squares and have an estimation what is left to do or how the game will continue. We can do the same for black. I will use a different color and let's count. These are 3, this is 6, 9, then another 6. Meaning we are 15, 16, 17. Both sides have 17 squares left. This is from this piece, not to forget. So we have 17 squares for both of our players, but white has to move first, meaning that white will lose because he has to move first again and he cannot move. So we go to the next position. Here the interesting part is that black in the game that was played, it's a real game, voluntarily, that was the last move, putting a piece on c5 and closing up the barrier for the white pieces. And if black does this, then he is obviously thinking that it's a good idea. Otherwise he wouldn't be playing a losing move. But at the same time, the position's actually winning for white. And it's pretty easy, because these squares on the first 2 rows, they belong to white. So black cannot contest any of these squares. At the same time, white has only 2 Amazons on the top, and would they be just trapped here, for example, in this position, then of course black would win the game. But they are not trapped, and instead the best idea for white is not to touch these 2 pieces at all, and as long as these 2 can move, because these 2 will with each move take away 1 of the squares from black's pieces. And a better idea would be, for example, move it here, far away, not be trapped, and putting up any moves in any direction. And finally, if we continue, then the black player is obviously in a bit of advantage in this area. For example, he can close up this space here and he has only these 2 squares for himself. But ultimately he will lose the game because white has way too many squares in this bunker for himself, whereas well, the moves on the top side will empty out because white will take them slowly, gradually away. Finally, our 4th position is this one. And here there are many moves how to continue to win the game for white, but the easiest to explain the strategy would be to move this Amazon to a2 and close the path behind it. Now these 2 rows are completely at white's, well, jurisdiction. Nobody can contest them, and therefore yeah, the game should be won pretty easily for white, because the next strategy is the same. We need to take away as many of the squares on the top so that black cannot use them, and in the end all of these pieces will be trapped except the ones on a2, and then white has still 15 moves to play, and that means that white will certainly win the game. There are also other moves that are pretty decent. For example, white could also think about making his bunker even bigger. For example, putting like a trap barrier on this squares, but ultimately it doesn't matter how big of his bunker is. It's more important that he wins the game, and even if he wins the game with 1 move, it's as much of a win as winning with 10 moves left. So these are the basic explanation and strategies for the game. If you want to get to the higher nuances for this game, just go to the next video with tactical exercises 5 to 8.